Welcome to Workspace Wednesday. As always, the updates for January. I can't do the updates for February, they haven't arrived yet. Of course, do please pipe up at any point if you've got any questions about anything. I was really excited when I announced this, and you may remember this was 2 months ago I announced this, and they keep pushing back the release of it. It's now scheduled for starts on the 3rd of February, so you might not yet have it. I haven't checked my inbox this morning to see whether I got it actually. But this seems to be a really good additional tool. If you forgot what it is, it basically allows you to create new groups of chats people. So if you've got a group of colleagues in the maths department, you could lump them all into a maths group. So you've got groups that you can collapse and expand in your chat things. So it just allows you to organize them that little bit better, which I think is really, really quite useful. And they announced it literally 2 months ago, and they still not managed to get it to work. Heaven only knows why, but they think they have this time, and you should be able to create your own little groups and add conversations in it. It's hard to see, but you can actually see the option to move a conversation into another. Currently you've got your direct messages and your spaces, and that's it. But you can create your own, and you can call it whatever you like. I just think it's a really good organizational tool, because I'm sure that you're the same, that you've probably got loads and loads of conversations going. Excuse me, and it's just really nice to be able to organize them a bit better so you can see what you do. Seems a very sensible thing. Okay, this is an admin thing really, and I know there are some admin people on the thing, but I just thought you might also want to know about this, because it might explain why you're not getting things shared the way you want to. That you've now got the option to limit the way everyone that's in a Google document is able to share things, and it's done at the admin level. So currently, I don't know if you've noticed in the share window, there's the little cog in the top right hand corner. I'm sure you all know. In there, you can be more specific. You can say the editors can't add anybody else, and they can't change the permissions of anybody else. And the viewers and the commenters, you can prevent them from downloading, printing, or copying. Yeah, but that option, that download, print, and copy option was only available to viewers and editors. You can now do that for everyone. So it just gives you an extra level of control in terms of it reduces the risk of data loss, I suppose, for your admin person. So you as a person be aware, if there's a rule that applies that, you might find you've not got access, or you can't make changes in that cog, and that's why as an end user. Okay. You can now use Gemini to interact with PDFs, which is quite nice. It can have a lot to do with all the things that you expect Gemini to do, and some of the things that you don't. So that's just quite nice. It's like all these things that American guy who Ian keeps having to tell me the name of, that says this is the worst AI you're ever going to use. Incrementally these little bits keep being added in, don't they? So every single time you come back to it, it does something slightly different. It still doesn't do charts, but although I've got an announcement about that, but we'll come to that in a moment. Okay. This one was almost no information about it. There was no link that I could find. But if you are still using a Windows device, the kind of Google Drive sync tool, whatever it's called, just uploads the differential between what it was and what it currently is. So rather than constantly uploading everything, so if you're on a particularly poor connection, you should notice it's a little bit slicker and a bit faster in the way that it responds, which seems to me a perfectly sensible thing, rather than endlessly uploading the whole thing every single time. So I think it's a fractional change. Generally, schools' internet is generally good, isn't it now? So you probably won't even notice the difference. But there was a time when, schools, 1,000 kids were on a dial-up connection, weren't they? So, you would have noticed it then, but not so much now, I don't think. Generally, we've understood we need to get that infrastructure right. Okay. But there's a question that goes with this. So you've now got the option to grade all in Google Classroom. And I suppose if it's a task that doesn't require a grade, like, you just need to know that everyone's read a document, for example, then you could just do grade all and say complete if you've got a mark that indicates that. But to be able to grade all out of 100, for example, seems to me not quite in the spirit of what marking is about for an educator. So I'm not sure I would use it for that. But, for the purpose of completeness, I suppose it could also be that you could use Google Classroom for a task. So you did a task in class and you want to be certain they'd all done it, and actually you want to mark it. And if there's some students absent, it's important for whatever the purpose of the task is, it's important they do that task. So you might need to know, so you wouldn't need to go through and accept, you mark all done, and then go through and change the status of that individual. You've been able to change the status of individuals in the mark book for quite some time. You've been able to go in and assign the grades there, but you can now do it for the whole group in that whole task, which is kind of quite nice. Has anyone got all the class tools in Google Classroom? They were announced, weren't they, at BET? But I think they've even announced before that. And there's a beta that you've got to apply to go to. And
I'm quite excited to have a play with it, but we don't have enough managed Chromebooks for me to really take advantage of it in a classroom. So we're fixing that in about the next 18 months, by which point I'm hoping it'll appear in my workspace.
Yeah, this isn't those tools. Those tools are part of the teaching. Oh no, is that the right way around? I've lost track of where they're at. I think they're part of the Education Plus option, but this is an additional thing where you can create vocabulary lists. I like vocabulary lists. I used vocabulary lists a lot when I was teaching, but they never kind of appeared as a document that I gave students. I print them off big and put them on the wall, so that the key language of that particular. So we were doing, because I was a music teacher, we were doing sonata form. I'd put all the key words relating to the sonata form on the wall, so that if the students didn't know, they can actually just sneak a little look. Oh yeah, it's exposition. Oh yeah, it's development. Oh yeah, it's a relative minor, and all those kind of things. So it just meant that because kids don't remember everything all the time. The fact that you can do that, I think, is a great thing. I'm not sure I would necessarily use it in Google Classroom. I'd want it printed out and on the wall. But you also tells you what it is, whether it's a verb, a noun, etc. Gives you a definition, and it gives you an example. So in terms of developing the students' literacy, to give them an understanding of how that word is used in a context, I think is really very useful. So there's definitely use for this. But like I say, my word list tended to be on the wall rather than in a document for the students. And maybe I got that wrong. Maybe it should have been both. But anyway, that's the way I did it. But it's a Education Premium Gemini Education option in Google Classroom if you've got that license. It wasn't on mine last week when I checked, so it's not quite launched yet. I think this is related to your read along. Yep, so you start to get insights about how the students are doing in the books that they've been reading inside read along. So again, it requires you to have read along built into Google Classroom, which comes with the Teaching and Learning and Education Plus upgrade. Can I ask anyone who's got primary schools or earlier, younger students, because there's some stuff in read along. Americans measure, they call a Lexile scale. It goes up to about 1200, 1300 Lexile scale, which as an average reading age is about a 12, 13-year-old. And there's quite a lot of books at that level. I've got a little I thought I didn't need to know how many there were. Yeah, so these are the reading ages. Yeah, so over 160 books at 501, yeah, which is your 8 to 10-year-olds. Yeah, so from about 700 up, there's probably about maybe 100 or so. I didn't check that. So there's quite a lot of books to support the reading, and they are age appropriate. So as they get older, they are much more grown-up looking books. So it's not all primary stuff. Of course, the lower level stuff is all primary, but it's definitely worth looking at that. Not to replace the reading scheme that any of your primary schools currently have. That they've invested a great deal of time in that, and there's no greater joy, I don't think, than a printed book. I do read a lot online, but I actually always deliberately select some books I think that will be more enjoyable to read as a real book. So I'm often choosing real books. I think you should do both. But read along as a supplement to your reading scheme, because I suspect there's lots of students who would prefer to read on screen, and if it gets in the habit, then converting to a real book is also that much easier for them because they've got the habit of it. And you get all these analytics, which is great. There was talk, I don't know if it's here, it's not in my announcements, it wasn't in this month, about the facility with read along built into Google Classroom for you to create custom books. So you get your analytics saying this student's struggling with these 6 words, and you get the option to build a custom book, so it generates a brand new story and includes those words that they need to practice a bit more. So as an addition, like I say, to your current reading scheme, it seems to me like it's a really useful additional tool. And there are age appropriate, certainly up to years 7 and 8. Beyond that, you're probably struggling a little bit. You'd have to look elsewhere, but certainly to years 7 and 8. So it's definitely worth looking at to support your reading scheme. those are the reading ages. Slide deck is shared afterwards, don't forget, so you've got those should you want them. Do we still do SMOG readability tests? Is that how we judge ours? It's how they used to do it. Yeah, standard measure of gobbledygook it is. You count the sentence lengths, you count the number of syllables, how many words with more than 3 syllables, and there's a formula that you apply that to, and it gives you an approximate reading age. When I used to, years and years ago, I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember, there was going to be a end of key stage 3 on screen test for ICT when ICT was a thing. And I was one of the people reading that, and we had to do a SMOG test for every single piece of text that went to the student. And generally, exams, public exams, SATs and GCSEs and A-levels, the reading age should be 1 year lower than the general age of the taker. So if it's a 16-year-old taking it, it should be of a reading age of 15 generally. That's the way they used to do it. So just a little aside there. Okay, that's it. That's all there was this year. There was lots of admin stuff. So if you're around tomorrow with James, there'll be lots of admin things available for you. But there's nothing else that was for me. There were very few announcements and very few for end users this time. Any questions, any comments about any of those things, or any just more general questions that people want answering today?
Whilst people are ruminating, can I just say I've spotted something new that I don't think I've seen on an announcement because it's so small that the team wouldn't have bothered mentioning it. But previously, when you started a Google Slides presentation, it would begin all GIFs at the beginning and they would start rolling through their infinity loops from the point you hit Slides Show. Now, the slide that when you activate that slide and press go, when you action whatever animation brings that GIF in, it starts it from the beginning, which is useful because there are many times where you don't want to show whatever the GIF will reveal until you start the slide, and you'd often find yourself caught out because it would be halfway through and finishing a loop. But it's a really nice tiny little change in the background that I think it's probably taken them a long time to put in, that no one's flagged, I don't think, but that I'm finding really useful.
No, I haven't seen that announcement. That's very useful. You can now also drag a GIF into a slide deck, which you never used to be able to do. Just to try and remind all the GIFs I've been doing ever since I've been doing this since March 2020. When I first started doing this, you had to download the GIF, then insert from computer. It was all right nuisance. Whereas you can drag it across the tabs now into it, and they work as long as the person who built it has got the share permissions from it. So yeah, and there's also GIFs built in now, aren't there? There's a little GIF library if you want to insert your own as well. So
whilst we're talking,
any other thoughts?
Whilst we're talking small changes, no, I may have missed this, but I was asked yesterday by one of my colleagues, why can't I insert a checkbox into a Google Doc any longer? And I was like, oh, God, you can do that. So I went and had a look, and I went to the insert menu and it wasn't there, and I went to the Smart Chip menu and it wasn't there. It's actually up by the bullet point menu now as its own little thing, and I just hadn't seen it. Now I tend to work in sheets more than docs. So my checkboxes tend to be part of a spreadsheet rather than a document. But I just thought I'd mention it in case other people have missed it as well.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it was always in the drop-down menu of the bullet points as an option to add them in, wasn't it?
But it's got its own little icon next to the bullet points now. But it's not in the insert menu any longer.
Would you not think, Dave, and you know me, Mr. Practical, full of good ideas, always. I bet you're ready for this one. If something moves in a menu, why don't they just leave it like in that menu? And even if it just says you can now to be found in the edit menu rather than in the, help menu or whatever, rather than just removing it and sticking it somewhere else so nobody can find it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that Google are always keen to do is keep those menus quite tidy.
Right.
One of the things that I always used to say to my staff around the advantages of using Docs over Word is that it can do 98% of what Word can do, but with about a third of the menu options. So it's much easier to find things in the menus in Workspace products than it is in Microsoft products. that's just my opinion. I get where you're coming from, Chris. The second thing about it is that it gives people like me the ability to be smug when I can go back to the colleagues and go, oh no, actually, it's fine, but it is still a thing and it's here now. And they go, oh my God, you're so clever, Dave.
I totally agree about it being a lot more curated way to find most of the same things, as you say, 98%. I so rarely find things in menus. I just type in the help box and search for what I want, because then I don't need to remember whether it's in tools or edit, which is a much more intuitive way of doing it, because that search bar works, unlike in most other software packages like Office, where it doesn't work, it just loads a web page.
Yeah.
And also the Google admin panel, where it also doesn't work. So let's not go too Google fanboy on this.
Yeah, I find that most of the time the stuff I'm inserting I do on the @ symbol.
Yeah, but there's no
that way now.
checkbox there now. So it's not in that insert or in that smart chip menu.
Oh, right. I wonder what's it actually called? Is that what they call it? Checklist, they call it. That's interesting. How can I go? No. Next to another word, so we can't find it.
Right, I'm going to leave you to it and go and have a sandwich. Thanks, Paul.
It is, but you've got to get to check. You've got to go to check. It is in the drop down on the @ symbol.
Go and tick off lunch. Great.
Yeah.
See you later. Really good to see you.
Thanks, now it is.
Yep.
You've got to get to CHE before it realizes you're not trying to insert a chart.
Which is, it's fine if you know what you're searching for, and if you're English and you call it a tick list or something like that, then it's less obvious. But it's quite obvious when you know where you're looking in the top ribbon bar menu.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I said, just one of those things that it caught me out for a couple of minutes, so I thought I'd share it in case anybody else had the same issue.
Yeah. Mail merge through a spreadsheet. That option was in one place. I presume it was in the 3 dots at the bottom for a little while, and then they moved it to the top right where all the CC and the BCC is. It took me about 2 weeks to find it. I thought, surely they're not turned that off. Where on earth that gone? That cut? And then, what's that thing there? I was very mad that it'd gone, but then I found it. So.